Basset Hound.
We are back. If you want to know, should you take your dog in the wilderness and want to hear a crazy story, then watch this video. Home sweet home, the mountains. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. When hiking in the mountains, your decisions equal consequences. Trips like this reveal who you are. You have the gear on your back, you have the brains in your head, and you soon discover the metal you're made of. My name is Matt Lambert, and this is my outdoor YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. Just woke up in an amazing cave. So, Charlie's our crazy Basset Hound. He is 2 years old, and we took him on a mountain backpacking trip.
You've had enough, Charlie?
What do you think, Charlie? He's like, this is a nice campsite, pretty flat, not too bad.
I can sleep here.
I'm a fairly experienced wilderness guy. Took an outdoor wilderness college course. I've been in the woods my whole life. So, we take the Basset Hound on a family mountain trip, and what happens?
Well, the short version is he fell off a 40-foot waterfall.
Because if you slip, fall into this, you will go down what Charlie just went down. Which is that.
So,
Questionable, not all there.
well, to be fair, he had been walking in the water all day in the creek, and there was no trouble, and
So we were hiking along a creek all day up the mountain. So he was it was hot, so he was going in the river. And that was okay. It was not a deep, fast-flowing river. So when we went up to the waterfall,
in his mind it was the same. Like he didn't recognize the danger of that,
and what happened was he slipped on the algae on the rocks, and then with the waterfall 10 feet behind him, he just continued and went down.
So it was a bit of our mistake. So what had happened was Matt had climbed up. There's the waterfall. Matt climbed up beside the waterfall on the mountain.
It was a cool scramble along the waterfall, not that bad. Julie,
I was sitting at the bottom with my friend, and we were holding Charlie.
They were holding the Basset Hound, and I looked at the scramble being more experienced, and I knew that it was going to be a challenging one, as I thought in my head, Charlie shouldn't go. And I just assumed everyone else thought that too, and they were holding Charlie. So I went, and I was doing the scramble, and all of a sudden Charlie's there, and I looked down, and I'm like, oh no, Charlie's not supposed to be here. I grab him and go a couple more steps, and I'm like, the dog's gonna take me down. So I let go, and I said, well, I guess if he falls, he falls. 5 seconds later, he falls.
Yeah. From my side of things, sitting below, like on the bottom of the scramble, it didn't look as steep as from Matt's perspective of up on the mountain. So when Charlie wanted to go to Matt, I was like, well, it doesn't look that steep. It's probably okay. Looks fine from here. So he goes chasing after Matt, because I guess he loves you more. But
it's the beard.
But yeah, so Charlie fell about 40 feet and then landed in like a pool of water.
Pool of water meaning like this. It was pretty well a dry waterfall with so he pretty well fell down a 40-foot, 30-foot rock face. He was a tough dog. He kept every time he fell like 5-10 more feet and hit another rock, he kept sprawling and kept his balance. He did really good. At each time he fell further, I expected him to all of a sudden lose it and just tumble and whack his head and start breaking bones, but he kept in control, hits the ground, and I'm like, he has to have broken legs. And he stands up as if he's all offended, looks at the waterfall, and then walks away.
And he comes back to me, and of course I'm panicking now because I just saw him fall very far, and I'm feeling him over, and I'm not finding any blood or broken bones. He's not whimpering. He didn't whimper this whole time. Like this entire time that he fell, he did that quietly. Like no whimper, no barking, nothing. And I was like, wow. So he comes over to me, and you can tell he's like shaken up a little bit, but yeah, he wasn't hurt at all.
And then
maybe bruised because he was limping
Yeah.
a little bit, but he walked the rest of the hike back with us without any trouble.
I come back down, Charlie starts barking at me, like he legit chewed me out
For doing
that and saying, why'd you make me come along, look at you got me hurt. Like he legit yelled at me for like 2 minutes.
Injuries, but he was pretty shook up. It was kind of that specific part was entertaining.
But anyway, the reason we made this video is to tell you this story. But should you take your basset hound in, like, we're not just talking campground, we're talking actually, you know, in the mountains, in the backpacking bush. Should it be done?
There was lots of people who brought their dogs on the trail that we're on, and
They all did good.
yeah. I think the one thing is we realized maybe dogs are different, but specific to Charlie and probably
He's
bassets.
smart, but at the same time he doesn't have real amazing critical thinking skills. Like he knows don't jump off a cliff, but he doesn't know, oh, don't step on this rock, because you can see that that rock is
wet.
Loose or wet or algae. So he got good basic critical thinking skills, but not to the level that he's going to be able to tell algae on a rock, or that rock's too loose, or oh, this current is good enough to cross, but now this is too strong, or oh, that current would suck me under.
He doesn't know that. So I would say if you bring your dog on a camping trip, hiking trip, whatever, watch them very closely, and if you see a hazard,
It's like having a kid. You gotta understand what they know, and yeah, like you said, if you see a hazard, you gotta say.
You gotta put your dog on a leash and take them away from that thing. So that was a mistake that we had made.
Another mistake I made, I assumed that Julie would, and the
Think
partner
the same thing as you.
would think the same thing, and I had the more experienced. I could see that, but that didn't mean everyone else had the same decision I made. So I assumed that they would hold Charlie, that was the mistake made right there. And then that mistake led to the next mistake, Charlie being let go, and then the next mistake, Charlie going. So 3 mistakes down the road
Led to disaster.
Almost disaster.
And we got very lucky, but that could have ended very differently. So
yeah, note there, tragedy doesn't just happen. Normally it's mistake from mistake that goes. It's rare that all of a sudden something, just a fluke happens, but normally it was my mistake that started the wheel.
And then I made a mistake on top of his mistake, and then Charlie made a mistake.
But yeah, we got off lucky, but again, how serious that could have been. We could have had a super injured dog in the woods, and what do you do with that? Do you bring them back, or worse, or don't bring them back? Like, it's definitely something to consider, because that could have been legit very traumatic and very sad ending, but we ended up getting lucky and thought we'd tell you.
So you don't do that with your dog.
So next time, if before your dog decides to jump off a waterfall too.
Maybe put them on the leash first.
Yeah. And if you have friends that their dogs want to jump off of waterfalls too, then share this vid. We will see you on the next episode, folks.